while protecting civic space and meeting the international standards set by FATF and ESAAMLG. And to help us explore that, we have in studio this afternoon Tyrone Ushima Mokatong, Deputy Registrar and Master of the High Court, and Ms. Ofense Hojamang, Attorney General, Director, Department of Civil and National Registration. A very good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Let's just start off with you, Mr. Mokatong, and just, explain to us what the Financial Action Task Force mutual evaluation really is, what it's mandated to do.
Okay. Thank you for the question. The Financial Action Task Force is an intergovernmental organization set up by the group of 7 countries. It was set up in 1989. The whole purpose is to ensure that the financial system worldwide is resilient against abuse by criminal syndicates. And then they set up what we call the FATF standards. And then the expectation is for countries to implement them. And then if you are not implementing them, there are consequences. And one of the most popular consequences is what we call grey listing,
right,
where countries would then apply enhanced measures when they are dealing with you in any activity that you will be dealing with. Now, for them to know that you are actually applying the standards, there is what we call mutual evaluation, which is really countries assessing each other against the standards to first check whether they have the laws in place, and secondly, whether they are implementing the laws to an effective standard.
Right.
So that's basically the mutual evaluation process.
Right. Cut across all sectors?
Cut across all sectors if you can. There are processes for the private sector, processes for the regulators, and in some instances, processes for individuals as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, let's just get into talking about the Register of Societies. Right, in regards to this evaluation. Let's just understand where the two meet.
Thank you very much for the question. The Registrar of Societies is mandated to regulate non-profit making organizations with the Societies Act. And in terms of the compliance to the FATF standards, we have what we call the recommendation. And the recommendation that applies to NPOs, non-profit making organizations, is a recommendation 8, which gives us guidance as to what we are supposed to do for us to be able to regulate NPOs. And also, after the first step that we have to do, or the emphasis of recommendation 8, is risk-based approach. That is, we have to supervise NPOs according to their risk levels.
Right.
But not just that, we also need to understand within the sector, the NPOs, as to which NPOs meet the standard definition. And after that, we look at the measures that we have in place to regulate those NPOs. And that we do through what we call the sector risk assessment, which we conducted in Botswana.
Right.
And maybe I need to indicate that in the context of Botswana, NPOs are societies with Registrar of Societies, are trusts with the Master of the High Court, and they are companies limited by guarantee with SIPA. So that the whole sector of NPOs at Master, at Register of Societies and at SIPA underwent an assessment. That is what we call the risk assessment, to be able to determine the risk level of NPOs in Botswana. And I want to indicate that the outcome of the assessment was that not any of our NPOs in Botswana is at risk of terrorist abuse.
Right,
Yes.
right, which puts us at a good standing.
Yes, yes.
All right, all right. You spoke about recommendation 8. Can you just expand more on it for the layman, to understand what it stipulates?
Recommendation 8 in basic language says NPOs are very important, and not all NPOs are at abuse of by terrorists. So what it says to us is that you need to understand the NPOs to be able to see amongst the whole sector, these are NPOs who are susceptible to abuse by terrorists. And how do you now work with these NPOs to ensure that they are not abused?
Okay.
Yes.
Let's just cross over right over to you, Mr. Mokatong, and probably just I do understand that, we've just gotten an understanding there from Ms. Hojamang that Botswana is at a good standing, right? When we talk about less risk to abuse by terrorists within NPOs in our country, right? Let's just talk about some of the things that can come out of that when we talk about international investment as well in our local NPOs and the likes.
Yes. That we are low risk is a good thing for a number of reasons. First, it means from a security perspective, we can be rest assured that we are a stable country where there is less risk of us being or experiencing terrorist activities, at least through the non-profit organizations. What it also does on another level is that it inspires donors to provide more funds to the sector itself, because they are aware that with these NPOs in Botswana, when we give them money, they are going to use them for the purposes that they've requested the funds for, and the funds won't be diverted towards terrorism financing activities. So in that sense, it also serves to inspire confidence on the donors as well. But beyond that, it also helps us as the country and the NPOs to be alert on how these issues are affecting other countries, because when we assess the risk in Botswana, we have to learn how in other countries they have suffered from these nefarious activities. And then we are on a lookout to see how we can prevent them. And often that is the core element of a non-profit organization, in the sense that it's a civic space to do good. So by learning how other countries are suffering from activities related to terrorism, they can find ways to prevent them. For example, in some countries you would find unemployment is one of the issues. They can look into the space of how do we address youth frustrations so that it doesn't mutate into terrorist activities. So it gives vibrancy also to the NPO sector, in that it gives them ideas on issues of tropical importance in which to focus on. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much for that. Now, Botswana has made significant progress since its last FATF evaluation. I mean, from the results you've just, laid for us there, Ms. Hojamang, that Botswana is at a great standing as it stands now. It's quite telling. Now, what were some of the key takeaways from the previous evaluation from the, NPO sector risk assessment?
Thank you very much. The key takeaways is that, one, we need to identify the NPOs that are at risk, one. Secondly, we have to look at the legal and the institutional framework. And then the third thing is that after that, we have to ensure that the legal and the institutional frameworks produce the intended results. And the main one is to work closely with NPOs to first identify the best practices, and also to do an oversight function rather than supervision of NPOs. That is, encourage NPOs to do self-regulation.
And on that topic of oversight, given the findings that we do have currently within the NPO sector, are there any gaps that perhaps you may have identified that have led to you coming to that conclusion that NPOs should now have oversight and be perhaps self-regulatory?
Yes, thank you very much. Like I have said, the main gap is working closely with NPOs to encourage or to identify the best practices, and also to get the NPOs to do self-regulation than the regulators now playing the supervisory function. Those are the main gaps, and we intend to close the gaps by continuous interaction with NPOs, by outreach activities. And the other thing is working together as the three regulators of NPOs to work hand in hand with NPOs, our NPOs, to see to it that they self-regulate themselves. Yes.
And a unified or harmonized framework can improve oversight. That is what I'm getting. Is it safe to put it that way?
Yes.
Of course. Yes. Any additions to that?
Yes, I think it's safe to put it that way, because one might say, why do we have different NPO regulators? Why not have a uniform NPO regulator? And the reason is NPOs are vehicles for people to achieve what they want to do in the civic space. Now, each vehicle has its own unique qualities and disadvantages. So if we are to have one vehicle, it would definitely leave out some of the elements that were available in the other vehicle. So the idea is, whichever vehicle you choose, let's have a uniform approach in supervision and coordinating them. And this is why the three NPO regulators work closely together to ensure that we have harmonized processes. Yes.
And a while back there, Mr. Mokgatong, you did mention there that though we're at a great standing, it's very important and vital that we take note of what is happening in other countries, right? And in turn, that could help us improve our NPO sector here in Botswana. What are some of the lessons that you've drawn from, international best practices?
Okay. The international best practice is really what the FATF standard is calling for, which is ensure that you are helping the NPOs to be resilient from abuse without stifling their creativity, their uniqueness, their ability to do the work they are meant to do, because NPOs at the core are voluntary organizations. They don't have resources to implement some of the preventative measures that the private sector that are profit-making can, for example, implement. So the idea is find a way within your country to do that. And we've looked within the region, and after looking within the region, this is why sometime in May or June, we launched a program called Aribue, which is really to invite the non-profit organization sector to be in constant communication with the regulators, so that, as Mawajaman says, we are able to keep developing best practices. It's not top-down, but it's us working together. So in that sense, that's one of the best practices we found within the region. And it's quite cost-effective. You don't need quite a lot of resources. You just need a platform who are the people who would represent the NPOs, who are the people who represent the regulators, and the two are able to constantly be engaged with each other. I think that's one of the best practices we've learned and have implemented this year.
Right, right.
Yes.
Any additions to that, Ms. Okojamang?
Yes, like Mr. Mokgatong has said, best practices is the way to go. And also in trying to refine our local NPOs, to be compliant, especially for the country to be compliant. And like he has said, time is now that it is the NPOs who talks to the regulator and not regulators talking to the NPOs. And the time is now that we are same, so that they give us feedback through the platform that he has mentioned of the Aribu. And that is a virtual platform where we request NPOs to always interact with regulators on any issues, be it questions, be it anything that they want to raise in how we work with them. Yes.
And when we talk about compliance, within the NPO sector in our country, to international standards that have been set for that sector, how are we doing?
Well, the answer lies in the report itself. In 2017, out of the 40 recommendations, we didn't do so well. But at this point, out of the 40 recommendations, 39 we have what they call compliant or largely compliant, which is a significant progress. The next phase of our evolution is on effectiveness. How well are we doing with our laws, so that we just don't have good laws, but we are also implementing them to achieve the intended results. So that's really the next challenge for Botswana.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Is there adequate collaboration and capacity building across the sector? Ms. Okojamang?
Yes, there is, yes. Capacity building across the sector can be capacity building of the regulators, which is continuous interactions with other stakeholders, and availing accessible platforms like webinar trainings to learn, because like he has said, AML-CFT revolve every day, and you need to be appraised with the emerging issues. But in terms of the NPO sector, there is what we refer to as continuous outreach, that is continuous interaction with our NPOs to appraise them of the emerging issues relating to the AML-CFT system. And also, like I have said, the reason why we came up with the Aribue platform is for us to be able to continuously engage our NPOs, continuously appraise them of any developing issues around the AML-CFT space. Yes.
With that, can we say that that is one contributing factor that has led to us being in a better position or doing really well when we talk about compliance to date from the numbers that we had in 2017 that you just outlaid for us?
We could say that because with respect to non-profit organizations, for a long time we are rated non-compliant and then slightly better partial compliant. Well, I'm not quite sure. But it's only now, or fairly now in August, that we upgraded to largely compliant for recommendation 8, which demonstrate the significant strides for a recommendation that we've struggled with for a long, long time. So going back to the issue of collaboration and coordination, that's really the cornerstone of that success. For example, she mentioned outreach and awareness. We embarked on a national roadshow, and had one of us done it individually, like sometimes we used to do, the cost element per institution would have shot up significantly high. But because we were doing it together, we were able to share the cost burden, and then it became more feasible to undertake the national outreach. And this is really demonstrating that within one pool of government, we can work together to ensure that the minimum resources that each of us have, if we pull them together, we are able to be more impactful. So in that sense, we're really quite happy with the collaboration and coordination by the NPO sector.
The next mutual evaluation is coming up for 2026-2027. How are we hoping to score as a country?
Yeah, I think for technical compliance, like I've said, we are only one recommendation short, and we know why we are why it's still outstanding. So there isn't really a lot of pressure to ensure that we are in good standing with that one. The biggest challenge is with effectiveness, really, and this is where we need all stakeholders to come together within government, within the private sector, because we all have a role to play. For example, one of the recommendations is on targeted financial sanctions, which is really to say if someone has been listed as a terrorist, Motswana should not collaborate or work with that person or avail fines to that person. So that requires all of us to come together. And we are confident we can. We just need to ensure that we work in a cohesive manner.
Right. Yeah. Well, that is all the time that we did have. Thank you so much. Any last words, Ms. Khojamang?
Okay, like Mr. Makhatong has said, the last word is NPOs, regulators, we are here partners now. The whole purpose is for us to work together. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
So
yes, of course. Well, there we have it. That was Mr. Tyrone. Excuse me, that was Mr. Tyrone Mokhatonga, Deputy Registrar and Master of the High Court, together with Ms. Ofense Khojamang, Attorney General, Director, Department of Civil and National Registration, talking about the upcoming Financial Action Task Force mutual evaluation of 2026 and 2027 and how Botswana is scoring in that regard when we talk about our MPO sector right here in Botswana. Stay tuned for the news at the top of the hour.